Mike likes machine guns.
I like machine guns. Okay, episode 14. We have Austin Rex.
Yes.
Firearms blog, writer, firearms enthusiast.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I'd like to, again, thank the Arrowhead people for really putting it up this time.
Oh.
They're sending larger water.
Yeah.
Look at these.
We've totally rekindled our relationship there.
Oh, this isn't a sponsor product. We'll get that out of there.
Thank you.
It's okay. Everybody doesn't have to be a sponsor.
No, this is a sponsor table today.
It's not really that big a deal.
Speaking of sponsors, I've got a friend. His name is Kevin. He started a company that many people might recognize, Savage Tacticians. And I have to give him a shout out because he sent me this shirt today or yesterday. Conan the Barbarian. Look at that.
That's right up your alley.
With nods.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening, Rich has a Conan the Barbarian shirt on, but it is white. So he's going to run into a rainstorm later, and the ladies are going to be all over him.
It's going to be glorious in Camus.
I grabbed my 4th of July t-shirt because we're sitting here. There's a 50 behind me. There's a table full of 50 in front of me, and I was like, seriously, if of all the times it's appropriate to wear a shirt that says, I can't hear you over all this freedom.
Yeah.
Like, it's today.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I literally couldn't hear you if you shot that right now. Like, we would all be deaf right now.
Yes.
Hey, before we get started, can I say one thing? I have a military truck, and if you were in the service, thank you for that. And if you shot your rifle from inside the vehicle, like, I don't know what you call that, a Uncle Sam drive-by, I'm angry with you. I have dug cases, and thank you for the links. I can use those. Anyone can recycle an M27, M13, or M9 link. That part's fine. But somehow they got 5.56 NATO cases wound up in the heater. Like, I don't even know how you get them in there.
Oh, your truck. You're talking about former military.
I'm talking about my truck, and I'm talking about, just keep this in mind, when you use a military vehicle, some poor schmuck civilian at some point is going to have that truck and love it. Please don't force spent casings into the heater and every panel and behind everything and into every nook and crevice. Just get out. Dismount, fire, and get back in. I just wanted to say that. I don't know if that's a big deal to other people, but it's been kind of a sore spot with me lately.
You love that truck.
I do, but I hate the spent cases wound up everywhere.
But think of the stories of how they got there. Like, maybe they were out training in the field for a week. Maybe it actually saw combat.
Maybe, but please quit that activity.
It was probably some guard unit that was just like, we're not going to clean that up.
And they were probably like, oh, we have to shoot all this ammo, but I don't want to get out of the truck, so I'll just shoot it from in the truck, and who cares where it goes? That's what I think.
Listen, many people have heard of you because I'm sure a lot of our listeners have read your work through the Firearm blog. I'm at my peak of insecurity as far as episode 14. Out of 13 episodes leading up, I'm at my peak because you're like a beautiful mind. You both are when it comes to firearms and knowledge and everything to do with anything when it comes to, it doesn't matter. Like, if I asked you a question, you'd have an answer and it'd be correct. So I'm honored to be amongst both of you.
Austin is more so, plus he's eloquent, and if you're not watching us on YouTube, I'm sorry, but just know this, Austin's not exactly what I'd call hard on the eyes.
Yeah, and he's single, ladies and
This
gentlemen.
is the most flattery I've ever experienced in my entire life, so I really don't know how to feel right now.
I just had to set expectations for our audience because there's going to be a lot of listening on my part today.
I doubt that.
So this is all very humbling because this journey, if you will, with the Firearm blog started with an idea I pitched back in 2017. And it was this Sandman S that I purchased. It was the first batch that came into Park City Gun Club, serial number 390.
Wow.
And I had 10,000 rounds through this thing. And I was like, let me do your like long-term kind of brutality tests. Like, let's see how this stuff holds up. And they were like, you have that data? And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of a nerd. So I do have an Excel spreadsheet with all the rounds fired. And there's a story behind that. But so I wrote this, and I remember of all the comments, it was Rock Island Auctions. And I jumped in and was like, that is quite the convincing word of endorsement. And I was like, okay, we're on to something here. So it kind of just took off from there.
Yep, Alston and I actually met at the Park City Gun Club, didn't we?
Yeah, that was like the inception of so many of these ideas. And probably about 3 days after I bought this, I had some 300 blackout hand loads that wouldn't cycle. And Mike wandered over and was like, what's going on? And I was like, this isn't working out for me. And he's like, what powder are you using? And he like took 30 minutes out of his day to explain this all to me, and then was like, we're doing some sound testing. You want to come help out? So I shot the Ghost when it was like unpainted prototype phase. I own one now, and it kind of went from there. It was like that slow roll of like, okay, I have a can, and now kind of going from there and coming and leading somehow all the way to doing things like this.
That's rad. What do we have? This is this is a very glorious piece of freedom.
KDEX. Shout out.
Yeah, this is I wanted to do like once a year a just no limit review. Like you'd see it on like Top Gear and other things like that where they would just have some crazy car that nobody could afford, but you wanted to see it anyways. So I reached out to the guys at KDEX, and huge shout out to Rob there, who made this happen. And they built this. Like, they don't have these in stock. They built this for this review, and then it'll go to them as a T&E gun after. But it is a KDEX Tremor 50, 20-inch barrel, kind of in more of a law enforcement configuration, and topped off with the Night Force.
Folding stock, mag fed, smooth action.
It's like glass. And as of a few days ago, Hornady is going to be supplying the review ammo for this.
Heck
which is
yeah.
like the greatest ammo of all time for it. That's 750 grain AMAX. Not to mention, Mike has also worked up this beautiful row of hand loads. So we're going to figure out just how accurate this thing can be.
Shout out to Hornady. Also, shout out to Night Force. I learned something new about them today, about their testing before it gets into the box. I didn't know this. Feel free to roast me in the comments. But they take the optics and they beat it onto a plastic or a rubber table.
Yeah, a little bench.
To make sure it's still zeros. So it's like beaten to death and then put in the box.
Please.
Night Force's mechanism is super accurate and strong. It's like double locked ringed. The tube body's twice as thick as it needs to be. I'm a huge Night Force fan for the repeatability, and I put a Night Force scope on a LAR Grizzly 50 and shot it till it started shooting poorly. You know, let's say shot the barrel out of it.
Wow.
And then I took that same scope and put it on a EDM Windrunner Model 96 and did the same thing to it. And it's worn two Barrett 82A1 barrels out to where they just wouldn't shoot accurately anymore. And then I put it on I ordered a Barrett MRAD when they first came out, but the scope hadn't gotten there yet. So I was super excited to shoot it, so I put that scope on the MRAD, and the MRAD will shoot quarter minute, 338 Lapua, and the best group that I've ever gotten out of it is 0.18. So it looked like 5 shots through like a ragged hole, like a sloppy 40 Smith & Wesson handgun or something, but that scope has been amazing for me. I don't know how many rounds it's had through it, but it's had a lot of 50 through it, and you can trust where you put it. So,
have you told the Night Force folks about this?
They've never asked.
Well, maybe we'll send this episode to them because that's a
they know I'm
testimony.
a fan.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the scope that I put on the 300 PRC Ruger Precision when I first got
That's actually a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, same NXS.
Yeah.
I'm a second focal plane fanboy.
That's what we have right here. And I've done reviews on both, and you look through a reticle, especially when you're in a gun store, and if you never want that reticle to change, you just get second focal plane. That's the easiest way to put it.
It stays, the crosshairs stay fine. They don't get fat when you turn the power up.
Makes sense.
Add magnification. So it skews your ability to accurately range with your reticle. That does change, although there's a little app you can use or whatever to know how it's recalibrating, but that's not been much of an issue for me. But I get angry when my crosshairs get all fat.
Forgive me for thinking you were a fan of a specific product based on the brand. I didn't really know the full scope, pun intended, of your reasoning and love affair for this Night Force product, because they pick on me guys in the office all the time for
That's totally not true. We don't pick on Rich.
No, you do. It's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm learning right now. But
look at him. That'd be like hitting an alligator in the head with a stick. You just don't do it.
There's just a ton of validity now that I didn't know before, and I should have asked you why. But now we're on the podcast, and everybody knows.
There's something to be said about. So I pulled this scope off of the Ruger Precision rifle that I ended up buying. That was the most viewed review I ever did. Also the most nerve-wracking review I ever did, because it was in 300 PRC, and no one had any information what that was. Like, the Department of Defense had bought it. They had a gun in. Like, they had an MRAD just for that. They're sourcing all these parts, and, like, we can't even get it. So the first gun that comes out, I'm like, let's do this. And I woke up the next morning in, like, cold sweats. I was like, what if it sucks? Like, that's like $2.50 a round. Like,
it does not suck.
Yeah, and it showed up, and Mike was like, do you have a scope for that? And I was like, I don't. I thought I was going to have a scope. And he was like, let's go get one. And then he's like, do you have a bipod? Nope. He's like, I've got you. And so
Of course he does.
I shot it at 100 yards, and then Tassin and I shot it off the tailgate of my truck at 1,050 yards, and I went 3 for 3 off the tailgate of my truck, and Tassin looked at me, and he's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you've got to add more distance. So I hauled it out to the desert, and I did a mile shot with it. It was just shy of 2,000 yards. It was 1,950 yards, so 1.1 miles. And I landed a shot with that, and I put it in the article, and I was like, I don't know what else to tell you other than this is amazing. Like, this is I think at the time it was like a $1,400, $1,500 gun. Obviously, they've gone up a little bit because of prices, but I still have that, and I usually run this optic on that, and there isn't a thing I would change about it. Like, when I bought that optic and I put it in the spur rings and I put the flatline level on it, I was like, it's done.
Show us a flatline level.
So the flatline level sits up top here. And then the reasoning behind this one, it's the covert, but now they're called the sniper series. It folds out like this.
Oh, yeah.
So that when you're behind the gun, you can have your left eye closed, be looking through the scope, and then close that eye, shift to your left eye and look through that and make sure you're level, and go back and forth without coming off the optic. Yeah.
You can only do that when you're 45 or younger. If you're 45 or over, you have to pull away and take a quick look at it and then come back.
The cataracts.
Those flat eyeballs.
That's why I wear these. They protect your eyeballs from blue light, and it's just, I'm taking preventative measures because eyes are very important, especially in the shooting world.
Smart.
Yeah. I should buy those as well.
Yeah, you should. You want to try them on?
Yeah, let's try
I
these
bet you
guys
look
on.
good.
Let's try these products.
Those are Heat Wave.
Okay. They're comfortable and classy.
Yeah.
I might need these for work.
Yeah.
I like what you've done there.
I know the people over there. Might be able to help you out.
So
Nerd.
I was driving up the canyon, and I brought this, and there's a story that it kind of resonated with me, and I don't know if anybody else in the shooting world has these stories, but I bought my Sandman, and within the first couple weeks of this, I was there, and I had my Sandman, and I had my Silencer Code Warlock too, and I was just so excited. And there's this kid in the lane next to me at Park City Gun Club with his grandpa, and he's looking over at me with this like childlike, just bright-eyed like wonder. And I continue shooting, and he just keeps staring, and I was like, oh, I've got to ask about this. So I leaned over, and I was like, if it's okay with your grandpa here, I think that you should give this a shot. And his grandpa looks at him, and he's like, well, I guess it's your lucky day. And I have photos of this. This kid's name is Hank. I'll never forget this. And I've got this photo of him holding this AR and 300 blackout. And he just his face probably hurt from smiling that much.
That's awesome.
And I was like, he'll never forget that. And I'll never forget that. And I hope he goes on and he loves it.
That's very touching.
He probably will.
Yeah.
So
Changing lives.
Yeah.
it's the little things like that as the years go on, you're like, oh, I'm going to show somebody this. And then they're like, dude. And I'm like, yeah, this is why we do it. Like, yes, there's a Second Amendment right, and there's defending yourself. But if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it.
100%.
Like, if it was just sucked all the time, no. Mm-hmm. I might put up with it, but I wouldn't be every weekend out there doing it.
I don't know, though. I feel like you are so in love with it. You might just be a fanatic and do it anyway.
Maybe it's getting a little more spendy in recent years, but
thank God for Hornady.
Yes,
Stepping up to the plate.
Yes, thank God for.
What would you say per round those are?
I actually did purchase a box before they jumped on as a sponsor, and luckily I had Cabela's points for this because it was $80 for a box of 10.
So $8. It's a 10-round box, not 20.
Yeah, $8 a shot for these guys, but. Mike can tell you more about this than I can, but for those of you who don't know ballistics coefficients and things like that, you're always chasing that one number in the G7 curve, so it's just how slippery you can make that through the air. And this, granted, it has a different ballistic coefficient. Mike has told me this when it leaves the barrel, but it has a ballistic coefficient of 1.1. And the best I can do with the most premium 30 caliber ammo is 0.87. So these are it's like a guided missile, Mm-hmm. It's just the best you can do.
Explain that really well. Yeah.
It's not exactly a kite in the wind, if you know what I'm saying.
It's going to make its destination.
Yeah, and they're so heavy. Shooting this in the wind is really fun because on anybody else's gun, you're like, oh man, I've got to dial. I've got to be 10 inches this way or that way. That gun, you're like, maybe one click. That's it. But it's just the bullet's so heavy, and I'm really excited to take this out to the spot in Wyoming and see how far we can take it out to.
I've always had the best luck. I know it is stated at 1.1, but I believe that number is achieved at 2,800, and I usually start them off about 2,650, so I always enter 0.925. And that seems to work out a lot better for me when the ranges get longer.
See, I spend as much time as Mike will allow me to up here on weekends and Friday nights and things like that, because all of the hands-on I've done there, I've done there. I've been there, I've done that, knowledge, that was the stuff to me that I was like, that's invaluable. Mm-hmm. That's what I tried to document, and it takes a lot longer, and it's a lot more tedious. And we did this extreme accuracy reloading article, and I think I spent 4 months on that. But by the end of it, Mike just looked at me and was like, there's the only way we could make this more accurate would be to weigh cases. And I was like, okay, now we're really getting crazy.
Well, we didn't have enough cases to weigh.
We didn't, but
those are all cold for weight.
yeah, Mike took all of these and called them for weight, and so there's actually one missing on this this row because Mike was like, nope, that didn't fall in the right weight class.
Can you explain that to us, myself as well as the audience who doesn't quite know the lingo?
You can basically check the internal volume of a case by weighing it on a scale. Mm-hmm. If it weighs more, it has less volume. If it weighs less, it has more volume because the outside's the same, right? Same size. So this weight comes from interior wall thickness and thickness through the head. And you could cull a bunch of cases for weight and take your lighter cases and add a little and remove a little from your heavier cases and still get the same speed. But if you mix a bunch of, extremely on the extreme side of whatever caliber you're weighing, if you get a very light case or a very heavy case, that has the propensity to produce a flyer. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, it was loaded perfect, but you just want to alleviate all those things that make you angry. There's think that you did it, and you did.
A lot of details that go into this process and making sure that the consistency is there, especially for you because you're, testing these and writing articles. I didn't really understand the full depth. I mean, 4 months that's a long article.
Well, the extreme accuracy reloading was a side pet project of mine. It wasn't a review. I mean, most of the time products will come with a review period. They've been as short as, I think, 30, 45 days for an H&K that I had. And then usually they're about 90 to 120 days. You've either got to pay for it or send it back. But I can kind of spend a little more time with some of the pet side projects. And in recent years, I've tried to do a little bit more of that. Just the kind of bare bones, if you wanted to go a little bit further, or like just some knowledge that I've picked up over the years, just trying to share that, because there's a lot of kind of misinformation in the industry. I don't think it's intended, but there's a difference between a review and a paid advertisement, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. And the joy, if you will, of TFB is that nobody at TFB takes money from vendors. It's just we make money off ad revenue. We do have a Patreon, and that supports us as well when YouTube got demonetized. But it's all just everybody has a day job. There's maybe 2 or 3 people there that actually write enough to make a living. But everybody else, they don't have an incentive to say anything nice about a product. It's just a fair, unbiased review.
You guys are doing the Lord's work.
For me, I think something that I like about firearms review in general is you've got a person who's super excited about handguns, and that person is going to do more handguns than someone else. And when you have someone like Austin that's more excited about long-range precision rifles, you're going to get a lot better review there. And you can't, if you lived in a urban area back east where it's flat or whatever, you can't get the range out of them. So I like the way that if you start to follow them a little bit, you'll start to see the different writers continuing to do kind of the same subject matter in the little sliver they have there, and they know what they're doing, and they have a, you don't want to bounce around too much in that. It makes for a great read.
When will this one be published?
I would like to have this done. It needs to be back to Rob at KDEX. I believe he's going to be using this as a kind of a demo gun, but I need to have this back probably by the end of next month. And right now, I need to get through the accuracy side of it, and then I want to do the Wyoming trip with it and really stretch it out. And
that's the one that I'm not invited to.
Oh, you come. You absolutely come. No, it's
Hold on. I didn't even know you knew about it, Rich.
See?
How did you find out who leaked it?
I believe it was Tassin.
Great.
Because
Well,
is Tassin going? Or he wants to go? Or
I think he wants to go. I just wanted to kind of get everybody set up before we went. Because you can go out and there's always a range day where somebody shows up and like the closest target at the Wyoming spot is 880 yards. So it's trial by fire.
listen, think of me as that little boy at the range, okay? Your head's going to get really big by the end of this episode. But I just want to be near you guys while you're doing this so I can learn, because I've got a lot to learn, and you guys you've got it pretty dialed yourself.
Well, if you want to learn, you're going to be there.
Okay.
Because like that's what it's all about.
so just to confirm, at this point, we are considering Rich invited.
Yeah, and
I'm excited about that, Rich.
Yes.
maybe we can do a collab, because I was listening to or watching, if you will, episode 12 last night, and he wanted to shoot that 6mm arc Blackwater.
Ooh, Jimmy. Yeah.
So I think it'd be fun to the spot we do not talk about at all. So it's something we'll have to coordinate.
Sure.
There's a lot of money in steel out there, and it's tough in the shooting world right now, because a lot of the spots you can't tell everyone about, because everyone will haul a water heater out there, or whatever excess things that they just want to shoot that were in their trash.
Please don't do that if you're listening.
But
and if
please-
you
please
do,
don't.
just pick it up and bring it to the dump.
And I don't want to keep going over this, but please exit your vehicle so you don't get cartridge cases in your defrost vents. Please, please do that.
I do have a story where Mike did not exit the vehicle.
Look, I've done it. I'm not proud of doing it, but
It was hilarious.
I've
comes
done
out.
it. But I make sure that the ejection port isn't going to break the windshield and get casings in the exhaust or the defrost.
Mike's a fair weather shooter, and I admire that, because I am as well. And I wanted to shoot this today, but it's pretty cold outside.
You guys need to listen to more David Goggins. Weather schmether.
Okay, fine. Well,
No, not happening.
what Mike said.
You're like, we should actually have him on. I know him. His name's Joe DeCina. You familiar with him? He started and founded Spartan Race. He's written a few books. He moved to Vermont specifically for the harsher living, harsher lifestyle. He believes that society has become too comfortable, and it has. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to be comfortable and enjoying your shooting experience. Yeah. There isn't, but
I'm not saying he would agree to come on, but if he did, I say we do it on a perfect day, 70 degrees.
yeah.
We plan it that way.
Okay. Deal.
I had this SIG Rattler cane brake, and it was this whole industry is built on relationships, and so I told SIG, I was like, look, I don't want to step on toes. You guys make cans, let's do a SIG gun and a SIG can, and they got all excited about this. So I ended up doing 2 reviews. It was just the base gun, and then it was all kitted out. I bought it, formed one, and SBR'd it. So the can shows up. I'm all excited to shoot this. And I get out, and it's just freezing, and I'm out there shooting, and I was like, Mike, do you want to shoot this? And he was like, no, it's warm in the Bonnie right now. And I was like, who said you had to get out of the Bonnie? So I have a photo somewhere of Mike one-handed shooting this Rattler out the passenger side window of the Bonnie, because he didn't want to get out, and I wanted him to shoot it. So it worked out. I think we tracked down those
We
cases.
met in the middle.
Yeah. So it worked out. No, I grew up in Scouts, and when it was
Austin's an Eagle Scout.
yeah, I am, and
I like the Weeblo Scouts.
Is that
a thing? Weeblos?
No,
That's a Boy Scout.
That's
a Cub Scout.
Oh,
yeah.
crap.
You go up through the ranks.
Sorry, I
of
don't
Cub
know.
Scouts.
My dad wouldn't let me be a scout.
So it's probably different now, but where I grew up in southern Utah in Escalante, shout out to everyone down there.
Both of them.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So yeah, my town was 800 people in peak season. My graduating class was 16. I rode a dirt bike to high school. I grew up with a Marlin Model 60 and a break action shotgun and a dirt bike. And
that you wore to school.
Dude, I showed up. I crashed it on the way to school so many times, and showed up like all like bloody and stuff, and was like, "I'm not late." And they're like, "You should probably go
to a doctor."
Yeah, get that attended to. Or like I broke book bags because I'd be going home too fast and like over whoops, and it would
Are you old enough to remember? I mean, it was like that when I was in high school. I mean, kids during hunting season still had their rifle mounted to the rear window of their truck. Was that something that happened when you were in high school or no?
Yeah, we terrified these teachers because it seemed like it was once a year that we would get like a new teacher that was like she needed her first teaching job. And they would come down there. And I remember this one time, like she was teaching class and my gym coach walked in, and he just walks in and he was like, had a box or something in his hand. He's like, "Who's got a knife?" And like 8 of us all at once are like, like we're like, knives out, ready to go. And she was like, "Oh my God."
Ooh, let me see this.
Yeah, there you go. But, and she, and we would go shoot after school. There was a gun range literally next to my high school. So like I grew up shooting. I bought an AR-15 on my 18th birthday. Like it was just kind of, it was what we did. But going back, circling around to Boy Scouts and where all this comes from.
Sorry, I got you off track there.
No, you're fine. I just want to finish that thought.
Weeblos.
Oh, the Weeblos.
Wolf, bear.
We did so many of those, like you go to scout camp or we do these events, or whatever you want to call them, trips. And like I slept in snow caves with like the wrong gear, and you have to be set up right because your body heat will melt the snow as the night goes on. So you actually need a separate like tarp over your sleeping bag. We didn't know that. So I woke up at like 3 in in a bag of water, just freezing. And so we were like huddled around a Coleman stove, like borderline hypothermia. That's one story. Like I have dozens and dozens of these. So people nowadays are like, "Oh, do you want to, I'm single, so I have to deal with the dating world." And every girl in Utah is like, "Oh, I like going on adventures." And I'm like, are they adventures that involve hot showers afterwards and not sleeping in the dirt? Because I'm a fan of that. I love the outdoors, but can we sleep in a
As am I,
Tempe-A?
but I just want to visit. I don't want to live there.
Exactly. We live in a society. Like, I love it so much.
I don't envy you that you're dating right now because back in my day when Facebook was the only thing that existed, it was pretty easy to not get too distracted by all
You never swiped any direction, did you?
No, thank God.
It's so hard because I don't have photos of me except for with guns because I'm like, check this out.
You got to narrow it down, right?
It's like, I know I'm not the guy that's out, trying to take selfies and look cute and, hiring people for photo shoots or whatever.
You ever taken a picture of your dessert?
He's making fun of me now.
Yes,
No,
I
I'm
have.
not.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know you did that.
Oh, I do every meal.
Oh,
Not every, but
I've never noticed. I'm going to start watching for that now. Sorry.
I've reinvented my life a couple times, and if you go way back on my Instagram, all the way back, there is pictures of me trying to fit into high society because my girlfriend at the time and now ex-wife, her family was very well off, and I wanted to fit in, so we ate some fancy meals, and I took photos of them, but it wasn't what I was interested in.
cringy, huh? You were just like, "Oh, this is painful."
I was like, why am I doing this? And I remember it resonated with me. I heard some interview with Dan Bilzerian, and he talked about his Instagram being a way of documenting all the cool things that he did.
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't have any photos of all the cool things that he did with his dad growing up. And I was like, you're 100% right. Because before all this, I wanted to race motocross. That's all I wanted to do. And this was pre-GoPro. And so getting photos and video of you doing cool stuff was tough. Like, no one just had 10 GoPros laying around.
Hold that DSLR camera somehow. Here's the throttle.
Yeah, exactly. So you had to like get somebody set up and get all these shots timed. And there's so many things that I have a few photos of, but not a ton. And then that career ended abruptly when I I put a hairline fracture in one of the vertebrae in my neck. And when I came to racing and thrown into this berm, and when I came to, I had a little moment where I was like, if I can still walk again, I'm going to walk away from this.
Yeah, smart.
And I did. And
Mike would agree with you on that. I don't think he likes vehicles with just two wheels.
Well, it's not that I don't like them. I like them fine. I just don't like them to be super loud and be revved and warmed up right outside my office window. Those kind I don't like.
That ends today.
But I'll still help you fix it.
I think Mike would probably lean towards, if it doesn't need to be loud, you should make it quieter.
The one thing I do, I agree with you. I think you're spot on. But it is actually, while riding on the freeway or the streets, having louder pipes helps with the safety aspect of it, to let other people around you know that you're there, because it's obviously very dangerous if you ride motorcycles. You have to have you should have the attitude of everyone that's trying to kill you. And I've ridden on quieter bikes, and it's already hard to see someone on a motorcycle on the main street. So having that extra loud pipe, in my perspective, it helps. So,
that all well may be, but it's super annoying when you're trying to have a conversation with someone and someone like you with extra loud pipes comes into the scene.
Yeah.
You just have to wait. I'm not saying your life isn't worth it. I mean, but it is annoying.
You mentioned Dan Bilzerian earlier. He's an interesting cat. We should have him on the podcast.
If you could have Dan Bilzerian on, that would be pretty incredible.
I can make that happen.
He'd probably never do it.
Yeah.
We'd have to pay him a lot, probably.
He shot a lot, and that's kind of what put him on my radar. It wasn't, the
babes.
The babes and the money and the poker and the things like that. It was just, he had some video where they were out, and he was like one-handed shooting a drone with a Glock 18, and I was just full auto, and I was like, dude, like, this is just cool footage, kind of thing. And so I was like, I'll watch, a few more videos. And so I watched some interviews, and I just remember that line resonating with me, because I would do, even today, like, all this cool stuff with Mike, and there's a sweet spot in between, like, you take some photos of it for, like, we were there kind of thing, and
for the gram,
you take too many photos, which then ruins the day. Because that's
me.
There's a lot of days where I'll go out to review guns, and I'm like, this is fun, and I love doing this, but I've not made this day fun because I've spent way too much time, trying to figure out lighting and take photos and make this all look good. But there is that sweet spot, and it is fun to kind of document things as you go.
I've been in his gun vault. He has a pretty sweet collection of weapons. I think even you would, Mike.
Oh, I'm sure I would.
Tip the hat.
A couple 10-22s, and you've got my interest.
Yeah. He gets a bad rap, but I had the opportunity to get to know him personally a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, a few years back, actually about 4 years ago, and did some work with him. And the first thing I noticed was his photographer does a fantastic job at making him look massive. He's really ripped, don't get me wrong, in great shape, but he's like tiny, like a soccer player. Like I could probably snap him over my knee.
Well, we'll see if you still say that if he comes on.
It's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to be the Thunder.
You should watch what you say.
I actually should watch what I say, because if he does catch wind of this, he get real pissed. You could kick my ass, Dan. It's okay.
Well, I mean, you guys have had BJ Baldwin up here already.
He's a party boy.
Yeah, and, my racing background, I was like, you what? You, like, casually dropped out on me, like, oh, yeah, BJ Baldwin was here. I was like, dude, that is, like, my dream to ride or drive a trophy truck.
That'd be awesome, huh?
Like, those are a couple $1 million. They've got 3 feet of suspension, 800 horsepower. But like, as time goes on, and it's funny, Mike was talking about, like, if there's some 10-22s there, he's into it. But that's the joy of this, is everybody's got their niche, but everybody's collection's always cool because you're always like, even if you've got like 5 guns, I'm like, but what 5? You know,
you wouldn't think my collection's very cool. I think you've seen some of mine and been like,
Don't say that, Rich. You've got guns.
I know I do, but they're just not.
You have the more important thing in life, and you have a family.
That's true.
So
they serve one specific purpose
and a job for right now.
it's getting heated. No.
I don't like that you said that, Mike.
See, I thought that'd be funny.
It's not.
It was funny.
Okay.
It was a little funny.
All right, I got a question for you, Austin. What's your favorite rifle to shoot all time? Like number 1, and then go through why. I'm sure our audience is wanting to know that.
An AR-15. So I was probably about 16 at the time, and my sister, I think it was her boyfriend or friend, came down, and he had a Rock River AR-15 with a red dot on it, and I was like, what is that? You know, like, I've seen these in movies, like, kind of thing. And the guy was the coolest because he knew I liked to shoot. And we had 162 acres, and he just gave me 2 mags, and I just went out, and I was like, oh, my gosh, this is so nice to shoot. And then we took it back, and he was like, here's how you take it apart. And I was like, dude, because I had taken apart this little Marlin Model 60-22, which is like, you know, it's just a puzzle full of little springs that go flying everywhere, and it's just a nightmare. And that gun was just like 2 pins, and oh my gosh, it's all toolless. And it's obviously a very prolific and, you know, it's a very popular platform now, but that was kind of where things departed. You know, I grew up around a lot of like hunting rifles that wanted to rip your arm off, you know. Everybody had that like 300 Win Mag Remington 700 that weighed 5 pounds that wanted to just destroy your shoulder. And then I shot this scary looking gun and it was like, this is nice to shoot.
They are scary. Gosh.
I know we should put like some wood on them or disguise them a little bit, but
I agree.
I've never, and I try as much as I can to take people, especially people, I mean, I know this sounds weird, especially people that are like on the fence or anti-gun. I try to take as many of them as I can shooting.
This is the attitude we need more of in the industry.
Well, because you can hate guns,
sure,
but I want you to have an informed opinion before you hate them.
Uh-huh.
So I've never taken anyone shooting that didn't like guns, that didn't have a good time. That was like, okay, I understand this more, you know. And some of them still didn't agree with it afterwards, but they were like, okay, I have a better understanding of it now, and, you know, that's not full auto, and, you know, those are a different, you know, in a different area, and just getting people exposed to it, because everything now is just a 30-second news cycle. You know, we want our information in 60 seconds or less.
Regardless of if it's true, just give it to me. Let me formulate my opinions now.
Yeah, or what is it? Twitter is like 180 characters. You know, like you can't read past that. And there's actually a sweet spot.
They don't want you to be too articulate with your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty smart. I've never thought about that. You're right. They limit how much you can put on there.
Yeah, and there is a sweet spot when you write articles, somewhere in between about 800 and 1,200 words. If you are under that, you don't have enough info for a full review. If you're over that, it's pretty hard to keep them engaged. Mm-hmm. So I have an awesome write-up. I spent a ton of time with Mike, learned a ton about AKs, and did this Wolverine review. And that thing is like 2,400 words.
Is that on the Firearm blog?
It is. It's one of the earlier articles I did. And Mike went through the whole process and how they optimized it and how it ended up looking the way that it did. And the end result is amazing. And I remember it was like the first article that James Reeves, who like jumped out and was like, that was good. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
Yeah. You're the guy that's on the other end of the spectrum that does, you know, all the Glock reviews, and he's up at Thunder Ranch with Clint Smith right now and doing all that. But I was like, okay, like we're onto something here. But it's hard to keep people's attention for that long. It really is.
Especially when reading.
Yeah. I just finished and I saw he was on the program. I just finished the most recent Jack Carr book, and that was a long read. Like Was it your favorite of all the novels he's released? No, I like what he did with the whole, post-pandemic thing, but I think that Savage Son would have to be the favorite. Where he really took the, man-hunting man aspect and extrapolated on that in that book and made it very visceral where things didn't really go as planned for the character, which is how 90% of the stories I tell go. Kind of like when I went to Shoot It Live and Mike was there, and then we got stuck at Shoot It Live 2018. And
wasn't that a really cold day?
Oh, why don't
the day?
Why don't you tell them how that went, Mike?
It was dusty. And I mean dusty. It's just a bunch of powdery dirt down there, and the wind howled, and it blew so much dirt in the air that I turned around and everyone had already left. But we didn't have a truck coming to pick the BMP up until the next day. So we went out there in the dust, and McKeith was with us, and Rod took his camper down there, and McKeith took a shower, but he decided to take like a long hot shower, and then we had no water.
Yes.
Like right when he got out, he was like, "Hey, anybody want to take a shower?" And it's like alarms are going off. You're out of water. You're out of water. So Austin had a room in town in Price, and we went in there and took a shower, and I bet it was 2 weeks until I got all the dirt really like out of my ears or whatever. It felt like it.
And that's the thing, and that's what I always admired about Mike telling these stories, because I asked Mike about the Big Sandy machine gun shoot, and he was like, no. And I was like, really? And he's like, you have to camp for a week. And I was like, okay. Like, I like how you were always a realist about it, because, no, like, as time goes on, you forget about these negative memories that you have, and Mike will give you the full scope experience, because, we got a forest fire shut down the road. We couldn't leave, and Mike actually paid for that hotel room. He was like, I was like, we're going to get a room in town. And he was like, I will pay for that if you will let me take a shower there. And I was like, 100%, but that day was super fun. Got to connect with everyone. And then that was about the first 2-3 hours. And then it just started blowing, and it was hot, and just the sweat and just everything sticking to you. So fun memories, but also, I mean, you have to admit sometimes it's like, okay, but it sucked a little bit. You know?
Well, the Big Sandy shoot's awesome, but basically there's a large plateau which has the shooting line and setup, and then directly behind that, you pull a trailer there. So you're 30 feet from the line, always. And it's got a killer night shoot, and it has a ton of shooting during the day, and they'll fly drones. The line is half a mile long, maybe, just set up with just belt feds and just all manner of cannon and machine gun and mortar and everything you can imagine.
That's awesome.
And when they start flying the drones down there, you can like, oh, they're flying a drone, because you just hear belt after belt after belt, and then you see the plane if no one shot it down. But after about 2 days, like, I like machine guns. I like German chocolate cake, but I don't want to eat it morning, noon, and night for a week. And you can't get away from the gunfire and the noise. After a while, it wears on you. Sure. You can go into the trailer. It's still loud in there. You just cannot get away from it all day.
Austin, let's talk about some of the punishment you've put through our cans, starting with the Sandman, because I know that you've got a lot of experience with beating the crap out of suppressors in general.
I just love to shoot, and I was in the market for a rifle silencer for a long time, and I bought this just the day after I saw it. I slept on it, and then I went and bought it. And I bought it based on the mount and based on the no restrictions. And at the time, it was didn't have the 3-prong flash hider. So I have a Mark 18, and so I had to run a break on that, which was atrocious. I shot it once without the can. And the guy in the lane next to me looked at me like I had just dropped a flashbang. He was like, "How dare you?" And I was like, "I know, how dare I? I'm going to fix that."
How dare you?
So, yes, exactly. And so I shot a ton through this can. 300 blackout before I had a Wolverine. We made sure the threads were concentric. A lot of by 39 and a ton of 5.56. But it's been on a belt-fed machine gun, which was Mike's Fight Light upper that we took to SHOT Show for a night vision shoot. It's really the first silencer that I bought that I was never worried about. I was like, I could just really, really just shoot and shoot and shoot and not be like, did that work its way loose? Is that going to be okay up there? And it's funny now because all the for those of you who are listening, all the Cerakote has worn off, and it's almost the same flat dark earth color as my my Mark 18 rail, and there's little burn spots on it. And I'm sorry to TNT guns and range, because I was having a blast one day and I set the gun down, and right as I set it down, I was like, wait, was that clear? And I looked back. It was not clear of the bench. So these little black spots are where the rubber bench at TNT melted onto the can.
Oh, you took a little bit of TNT with you.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that, TNT.
I've done that. We all have.
So how many rounds total you think, roughly?
Roughly, I can get the exact number, but it's just under 15,000. It's like 14,800 rounds through it. Like, you can look through the stack. Like, it's very, very heavily used.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
And
wow.
I said this in the 10,000 round review. I was like, I would buy it again. Nothing I would change about it.
Serial number 390.
Yeah, one of the original 500. And the only thing that we replaced I think I said that the locking collar was a little worn on it. Or what is that what you call that?
The detent plate.
Yeah, the detent plate was a little worn on it. And Mike was like, here's a new detent plate. And I was like, problem solved. So it just is a workhorse of a can. You guys have obviously had tremendous success. And I have to say this on the show, because for those TFB fans or listeners or things like that out there, I've been paid by Dead Air once to be on the license for legal purposes. Uh-huh. And I remember...
To make you an employee?
I think I was on the other side of the BMP, OT90, if you will. I don't know what we're calling it now. And
whatever.
I was filling out the responsible person's paperwork. This was just purely so I could, Mike was kind enough to receive these review guns. And I was like, Mike, I need a job title. What's my job title here at Dead Air? And I think he kind of looked over, kind of off into the distance for a second, and looked at me and was like, range cowboy. And I was like, range cowboy. Yeah. So we were back in the exact same spot. Literally 3 months later, and I get this call, and the caller ID is FBI DC headquarters.
Nice.
It's like, okay, this is serious. And in the very serious FBI voice, they're like, hey, we just wanted to call and let you know we finished processing your paperwork, and you're all set. You're now a responsible party, on this license. And I put the phone on speaker, and I was like, just really quick, could you confirm for me the title that you have for me, in your system? And they were like, yeah, we have you down here as a range cowboy. And I was like, yep, that's perfect, thank you. And hung up as fast as I could. But yeah, so I have a couple of cans now that we were doing the paperwork, and Tassin was like, you need to have Mike sign those. And Mike just leaned over and was like, you can do that now. And I was like, I can do that now, I guess. So, it's, filled out by me. It's filled out, and it's range cowboy. So
Dead Air Silencers, range cowboy.
Well, Austin does help us at shoots, so
yeah,
it seemed appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It did. It worked out. And we've done a few.
Yeah, we'll do a few more.
You've done more with Mike than I have now, and you kind of took the job that I used to do for free. I used to just run these weird ideas by Mike. I was like, Mike, let's load some weird guns in the back of your car, and we'll just go out and shoot them.
Maybe elements of it. I don't know if you know exactly what I do sometimes.
No, I don't want to know.
I'm just kidding.
You keep that secret. But I was like, Mike, I don't think people understand that you shoot other things. And so we did this Pappas trunk gun series.
Yes, I love that little series you guys did.
With no context, none. It was just Mike would just walk over to the back of the Bonneville, and he would fetch a random firearm. I think we started with, a SPAS 12. And
I can't remember.
Yeah, we did a SPAS 12, an AG-42 Lugman, a Johnson rifle, just all these guns, and people were like, wait, what? And
should we ask the audience right now? Let us know in the comments if you want us to bring that back. Some trunk guns, some Bonnie trunk gun action.
It'll have to come back, but Mike will have to put a little spin on it because there's got to be trunk and then truck guns. But
ooh, yeah,
you know,
you like it.
Mike has
alternate.
Yeah, but for those of you who don't know, Mike has a very eclectic collection of firearms, and there are some things in there that you are like, whoa, I have never seen one of these in the flesh. But the crazy thing about all of this is that Mike shoots them. I mean, there's a few that are unfired that he's kept in perfect condition, but one of the other shoots that I'll never forget was the Flux guys came up, and they wanted to do some content, and Mike was like, he remembered that I wanted to shoot his MRAD, and we ran out of ammo that day, and he's like, do you still want to shoot that MRAD? And I was like, I would love to. So we go pick this thing up, and he's like, is there anything else you want to shoot? And I was like, I'm going to kick myself for not asking, but like, you can say no. Can we shoot this SVD Dragunov Tiger that you have right here? And he was like, oh yeah. Beautiful. And he grabbed it and grabbed ammo. And so we shot with them. We did some stuff. And then Mike and I had the most spiritual experience with that gun. Like, we put a couple of rounds of surplus Bulgarian ammo into this snowbank at 200 yards. And Mike was like, it's good. Go for 1,000. And
yes,
I think Tassin went 9 for 10 at
he did
1,000 yards.
Wow.
1,050.
Yeah, exactly.
Impressive.
So, and
on Wolf ammo.
Yeah.
Wow. Just out of the box, Wolf 54R. That gun shoots good.
And there's so many lessons from that day, because we had that, and we had the Barrett, and the Barrett bipod was way out in front of the gun, and the truck is on a downslope. So there's only so far you can adjust because that bipod's so far out. Now on that Tiger, the Russians designed that, and the bipod's attached to the receiver. So those legs being closer to you gives you more traverse and elevation. So everybody was on target faster. And so now, I've scooched this bipod back, but it's just all sorts of learning experiences.
Sure.
I moved the MRAD bipod back after that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Watching you explain some of your rifles that you have, it's like watching Antique Roadshow. I used to love watching that show, and they'd come up, the person with the artifact, and then they drop it down in front of the expert, and the expert would go into all these details about it, and I'm just like, how do they know all this stuff? And I think you were recently talking about a Japanese rifle. Maybe it was World War I, World War II. It had some pretty unique characteristics.
Arisaka?
Yeah. Some rare items that were still intact, not just intact, but were in mint condition that you are super hard to find.
Aircraft sights,
yes,
dust cover, monopod.
Yeah, no, it was he's explaining all these amazing things about this rifle, this old ass rifle.
It's not that old. It's 100 years old.
Okay, and I'm just sitting here listening and taking it in. A moment, just watching the expert go through these details about this. And I'm just like, where do you, what books are you, where do you learn all this? And it just kind of comes out. And it's like, I
don't know. Sometimes I come up with something here and there. It's not very often.
No.
I think it's interest of subject.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. If you, I say this to people a lot. I'm like, I can't give you the want. If you don't want to do it, I can't give you the want.
Yeah,
but if you want to do it, and Mike, you can tell, just wants to know more. And there's certain areas, to this day, I think somebody at TFB the other day was like, oh, who knows stuff about AKs? And they were like, oh, Austin does. And I was like, kind of. But that's just I'll find you an answer, and that's probably going to involve talking to Mike and a few other people, because it's just, you got to still want to, pick up this knowledge. And Mike is a wealth of that.
Speaking of, I'm going to volunteer you. You can say no, but I think it would be awesome, given your background and everything that we've discussed in today's podcast. We've got a very active audience, as you know. Maybe in the comment section, specifically on YouTube, ask Austin anything.
Yeah,
and maybe for like a week, you can go in and respond to those comments, like technical questions, like get weird on this rifle and then other things, just because I know that you'll have the answers to most of them. If you don't, you'll find them. But I think it'd be really cool activity, and it'll bring more value because not everyone has access to big brains like this.
I like that. We should ask each guest while they're on, so they can't say no, if they would manage those comments for a period of 14 days.
It would help me. That's not the main reason. I just know that there's going to be some questions.
That's a great idea, Rich.
Yeah.
No, I will 100%. I'll follow this. I'll look up this YouTube video when it goes live, and we'll, I'll respond to those comments. And the other thing is, our TFB has a Discord, and if you watch any of the TFB videos, the Discord link should be in the description. And I'm fairly active on that Discord, and especially if you support, because we have different channels for those who support through Patreon. If you shoot me your questions, I do my best to answer all of them. So
you're the man.
Even if I don't know, I will either try to find you an answer, or I will tell you I don't know, or I'll try to learn myself.
And Austin J. Rex. Yeah. At Austin J. Rex, right?
Yeah, at Austin J. Rex. Somebody already had Austin Rex, so I had to throw a middle initial in there.
Bastards.
And you'll have to type it in verbatim because I've been shadow banned, so I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Yep, it doesn't show up until you type in the entire thing.
Real quick on that, guys, as we wrap up, speaking of shadow ban, as many of you might already know, we've been targeted through Instagram specifically, which is part of the reason why we came out with this podcast, not just by popular demand, but also just making sure that we're on other platforms. So please, we encourage you, because we're not sure what's going to happen with this. We're doing our best to play by the rules, but they're vaguely written and they've got a lot of power. So if they shut us down tomorrow, we want to still be able to reach you. So don't just watch and listen to this podcast. Share it with your homies, or home slicers, as Mike likes to put it.
Yo, home slicer. You're my home slicer.
Yes. It's an honor. And then also subscribe to our newsletter, guys, because we send out a weekly newsletter, and that's going to be really hard to get rid of. So I think that's going to kind of be our last line of defense.
That way we can stay in touch.
Yes. So
thank you guys for having me on. This was super, super flattering. I don't think I'll be walking onto Letterman anytime soon, so this is probably about as much exposure as I'm going to get on the YouTubes. Well, other than for those out there, 1911 Syndicate, Jake, as you guys know.
Yes, we love Jake.
I just shot a ton of content with him as that rolls out, you'll see a little more of me. But thank you again for.
We're gonna have you back.
No, I couldn't believe that you agreed to come on. We're honored to have you.
I will. This is like my happy place. I'll come back here anytime and load some ammo or just talk about.
You could literally take us to 45 listeners.
You could do that. I'll go hype this up in the TFB Discord.
Oh, please do, yeah.
And we'll see how many listeners we can get.
Heck yeah.
Maybe we pulled 2 out of that little pond.
Ooh. Man, we'll be in the big time then.
Well, 1 at least, or I'd take a nibble at this point, but.
Yes.
We'll get up there.
Okay, again, thanks for being on, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Thank you for the support.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with all your home slicers.